Hello everyone, Darth Bane here. We're going to do something different today, and we're going to review a novel that pretty much started everything for me. It's the reason I am a fan of the expanded universe. It's what made me a bigger fan of Star Wars. It made me realize the world of Star Wars was much bigger than the movies. A little backstory on myself. I think it's finally time that people know what happened. My origin story of how I became an expanded universe fan. I loved the Knights of the Old Republic games. I loved KOTOR 1. I loved KOTOR 2. Of course, there are some things they've mentioned here and there I've heard people talk about regarding the rule of two. And I was interested to know who started the rule of two. Because the Sith I thought was very fascinating. I wouldn't know till years later that Darth Bane was mentioned first in the novelization of The Phantom Menace. Well, 6 years ago, little did I know that what I was picking up would start make me from a casual fan of Star Wars into something much bigger and maybe appreciate the franchise and maybe realize there's more to love about Star Wars than just the movies, than seeing flashy special effects with flashy lightsaber duels. Or you just, because I was too lazy to read. And I have quite an imagination. I've read fan fiction, but I never thought I'd actually read actual, real Star Wars that isn't fan fiction bullshit. And this started it. I know I haven't really talked about that, but since this is a major event in the point of Star Wars, what made me the fan I am today was this book, Darth Bane, Path of Destruction. When I've read this, I was blown away. Holy shit. To see this character come, his beginnings being from a nobody to being the Dark Lord of the Sith that would help start the downfall of the Republic and the Jedi Order. It all started with Darth Bane. What makes it even more, which made me give you a cue, wait a minute, there's actually continuity with these books and the rest of the EU. It mentioned a lot of the events of Knights of the Old Republic. It blew me away. Wow. It just made me see a bigger picture. Then when I played KOTOR 1 again, I was blown away how much continuity there was with the expanded universe. And that's when it began. I became more fascinated. I wanted to read more. Now, we've talked about that long enough, but there's just so much I could say about this novel. My favorite of the entire expanded universe. Even though this is the first of a trilogy, this was not intended to be a trilogy at first. Drew Christensen did a very good job with this novel. And I enjoyed the development with Bane, who started off as as Dessel until he became Darth Bane. I'm not going to spoil anything really, but it was interesting to see this character develop, honestly. And this made me respect the Sith a lot more. The Sith aren't just one-dimensional supervillains that the movies would make them look if you only know them through the movies. This actually gives them depth. And it made me realize that villains can have depth too. They can be sympathetic. And I couldn't help but root for Bane throughout this entire novel. Some of the shit that he's went through. Honestly, he started off. He was pretty much an underdog through most of this book, and the rise on top to go against the status quo. I love this novel because it does everything that I love in an origin story. And the way he destroyed the Khan Sith Order was brilliant. Honestly. This book was amazing. It's still amazing. Yeah, everyone has their favorites in the expanded universe. People have their Thrawn trilogy. People have, various other stuff. But me, this is my personal favorite. My entry into the expanded universe, even though it was more of the game. But this, in terms of reading, this maybe go outside that realm because anyone can play Knights of the Old Republic. Anyone could watch the movies a billion times, but it takes a lot more to actually pick up a novel and read it all the way through. It's a great story, it really is. And there's no reason you should not pick this up or read it. There's just no reason at all. You're doing yourself a disservice. There's a much bigger world out there. Even if you don't really care for the post Return of the Jedi stuff in the expanded universe, you're missing out on some really great material. Even if Disney does their own version of Darth Bane, it will never be as good as this. No, I don't say this is good. This is great. The origin with the Sith is just there's so much I can talk about in this book. I just don't want to give too much away because it's so good. The start of my expanded universe fandom started with here, and it's only fitting that I reviewed it in my 25th episode. There is no reason why people who have yet to pick this book up, who have read the expanded universe, have not read it yet. Or you can just listen to the audiobook. That's great too, which I listened to that before I did this review because I didn't feel like reading the book at the moment because I'm reading another book. It's amazing. I just don't understand. I'm sorry I'm just rambling. It's just I don't get to talk about my favorite novel very often, and I figured it was time. Darth Bane Path of Destruction, for the amount of impact it has on the Star Wars expanded universe, it has an impact. It affects the generations of Sith that came after Bane. Darth Plagueis, Sidious, Darth Krayt, Caius, and many more. It all started here. The Star Wars galaxy as we know it would not be as it is had it not been for Darth Bane's actions on Ruusan. Hell, the events of this novel, the planet, where all the thought bomb happened, that's a big plot point in one of the Dark Forces games. It's just this book pretty much one of the things that highly dispels anyone that says the EU had no continuity. This book is one of the proofs of that. It references the Knights of the Old Republic 1 so much. Heck, it even makes a few references to some of the Tales comics. So much continuity in here. The connections, you wouldn't even notice them if you read it the first time if you never read it. I didn't until I read more. Going back to this book after reading a lot of the other stuff, maybe appreciate it more. Darth Bane is one of my favorite characters in the expanded universe. He isn't overly evil like a lot of other Sith are. He actually has things you can actually sympathize with. And another important character in the EU, Revan. Revan also is just as important to the rule of two, if not more, than Bane. For me, this is a great read, especially if you're the kind of person who loves Star Wars for the lore, not just the movies, not just the flashy special effects, but the lore and the great storytelling. This book, I can't really say anything negative because I think it does everything right. Honestly, there isn't much more I can say without spoilers, so I better end this video now. Darth Bane, Path of Destruction gets 5 out of 5 stars. There is nothing that I can say that could do this book justice. You have to read it yourself, honestly, or just listen to the audiobook, whatever suits you. But I highly encourage to read this novel. You're missing out on a great story if you don't. Heck. And that is the end of my video, people. My favorite expanded universe novel is finally reviewed. My entry into the expanded universe. Anyway, see you next time, folks, when we're going to go back to Jedi Apprentice, book 5 and 6. Stay tuned, everyone.